city of Hanoi is the bustling heart of the country of Vietnam.
Fall in love so frequently, frequencies gonna fall apart so easily. Recently seeming like demons been deceiving me. On and on, swerving like serpentines, surfing these keep me on the low so urgently, purposely. Only one feeling how I am.
A sprawling metropolitan area with over 10 million people. There are lots to love about this amazing city. The interesting people, the wonderful culture, everything mixed together. There's a lot to love about the city. So, for a lot of those reasons, expats, short for expatriates who have left their home country to come here and live in the city, have found themselves real careers, real lives, and real purpose to stay in the city and build themselves and who they are. So with this documentary, I want to find out what those stories are. Before that, a little context. All around the world, it is estimated that 232 million people lives outside of their country of origin, according to sources from the United Nations. This number has seen steady increases throughout the years, rising from 154 million in 1990 and 175 million in 2000. In particular, the biggest concentration of expats can be found in South Asia, when an independent study back in 2013 from a group known as the Expat Survey found that 36 million expats currently reside there. Going even more specifically, the Vietnamese Ministry of Labor, Invalids, and Social Affairs released a report back in 2015 stating that the country of Vietnam harbors close to 84,000 expats, with the number increasing significantly over the last 10 years. Our first story is of a man named Justin Mott. Justin's photography work is truly remarkable. He has been in the industry for close to a decade, with his work being sponsored by many prestigious names, such as Hasselblad, Canon, or the New York Times. Alright, Justin, can you say to the camera your name, where you're from originally, how long you've been here in Hanoi, and what you do?
Sure. My name is Justin Ma. I've been in Hanoi for over a decade, coming up maybe about 13 years, and I'm a professional photographer.
So, yeah, what was your story? Like, what was your motivation to move here to Hanoi in particular?
I moved to Vietnam because I was studying photography. I was traveling throughout Vietnam, working on personal projects with my photography, doing documentary work. And when I came here to Hanoi as just a traveler, I fell in love with the city, I fell in love with the people, I fell in love with a lot of stories here. And over the next 2 years, I found myself coming back and forth, splitting my time between San Francisco, studying photojournalism there, and coming out here, working on my projects. Then eventually I dropped out of school early. I don't always recommend that to people, but it worked for me. I always wanted to get into work with the New York Times, I wanted to get into work with big magazines and newspapers. I started to get that work, so rather than finish school, I ended up just sort of staying here and making it work. I was actually living in Cambodia first, and I took a bus across the border. So, not that different than Cambodia right when you cross the border, but I guess if you consider my first real day in Vietnam was probably when the bus got into Ho Chi Minh City and it was wandering around, and just how frantic it was, like the hustle and bustle of movement, people. I mean, for me, I'm a very visual person, so there was a lot to see, a lot to look at, and a lot that I wanted to photograph. So I fell in love right away visually with this country.
What are some of your ways that you do for yourself, kind of to make yourself feel like a local?
Yeah, I'd say I'll never feel like a local, really. I mean, I'm always going to be American. I'm always going to be a foreigner. I love this country. I'm very lucky that I've been accepted into this country for a long time. And a lot of people experience a localness through the food, and that's not really me. Vietnam is famous for the food, but I don't eat meat, so I don't get to experience that pleasure that most people do with the food. But for me, to experience being a local and the best I can, it's wandering around outside of tourist areas, Instead of going to Sapa, I used to go to Ha Giang and going to little villages and wandering around with my camera. And my Vietnamese is pretty bad, for living here so long.
What kind of phrases do you know?
I mean,
whatever you can.
I call my English taxi cab English because I'm going back and forth to the airport a lot, so I always know how to say go left, go straight, where I want to go, how much something costs.
In those kind of first days when you're trying to settle into Hanoi, was there anybody or any particular groups that really helped you kind of settle into the culture and just the life here?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question, and that's probably one of the reasons why I stayed here was because of the people and how welcoming they were. I happened to meet a local Vietnamese photography group, and wow, I mean, so exciting, so nice to me. They took me around, showed me around, and I was in Hanoi for about a month. When I came to Hanoi, I wanted to just settle down for a little bit and really experience the city for a decent amount of time. So I stayed here for a month. I met a group of photographers, Vietnamese photographers. They invited me to the coffee shops. They invited me to some of their talks, their meetings. Then they started taking me to places. And it was so warm, so welcoming. And that really, truly, that was a moment where I really fell in love with this country.
From I guess you would say, like, from a photographer's perspective, what about this city, like, aesthetically speaking, really draws you to it?
Yeah, I mean, I photograph people. I always have, and that's my background. So people in Hanoi can be a little bit tough, to photograph at first, but once they let you, once they know what you're doing and they trust you and open up a little bit, it's great to photograph people. They'll sort of leave you alone. You do your thing, they do their thing. Yeah. For me, the textures in the background here when you go around, the architecture, the buildings, I always like that. There's always something. I mean, if you sat in the old quarter, just looked around, and people watch, it's amazing, right? Yeah. So imagine what it's like to photograph that. It's even 10 times better. So it's a great city to get lost in. I like to wander around by myself with my camera on foot, and there's no better place to do it than Hanoi.
So, thinking long term, I would say, do you plan to stay here in the city for, like, what are your long term plans, I guess I would say?
I'm never a long term thinker. Most of my plans, I don't know. I think for at least a while our business works in Southeast Asia, so anywhere in this area works well for me and works well for my wife. She's Vietnamese, her mother lives here, so I think we'll always have a partial home here. Maybe long term we will split our time between the US and Vietnam, but that's not for a long time. Mm-hmm. For now, we're here, we're in this region, our clients know us here, and we like being here.
Justin's story is one of the rarer ones within the expat community in general. A myriad of factors, such as language barriers or an inability to adapt to their new culture, bars them sometimes from finding larger successes. In fact, a lot of the friends that I've had the chance to talk to off of camera have said that some of their own friends have left the country and the city even within a year or a few months. Because of that, having a tight-knit community of other fellow expats who have gone through the same experience is crucial. Usually, and every single city has one of these, there's an expats area where most of them congregate, and there are businesses that serve more of that foreign lifestyle that people are used to. For Hanoi, this is the area surrounding West Lake, the biggest lake in the city. Our next story comes from a teacher of sorts, and a great friend of mine, Caitlin Worsham. Here's her story.
My name is Caitlin Worsham. I am the Director of College Counseling and Academics at American Education Group of Vietnam. I have been here, I think, for 14 years on and off. 14. Awesome. My sister had been living here at the time, and she said, well, why don't you just come out to Vietnam and try it out, see how you do, see how you like it, just regroup. And I started off here, and I kept thinking I was going to leave. Every 6 months I had a plan to leave, and then 14 years later I have not left. I remember the first day that I came to Hanoi. Okay. And I remember, first of all, the smell of burning, right, because they were burning the fields at the time. Yeah. And just being walloped by the heat when you got off the plane. My sister was living in a villa, and she didn't have a key for me because she had just moved in. It was like one of her first 2 weeks there. She was working for the Vietnam News. We were trying to find a place to get key copies, and so we thought going to the old quarter we would find somewhere like that. And so we found Lock Street, and we found Door Street, and we found Hinge Street, and all of the other streets. We had started at the top of Wan Kien Lake, and we went everywhere trying to find a place to copy the key. We were miming things and drawing things, and we're sweating and we're miserable. We walked all the way around through every street, and then of course we're back at the lake, and we're like, I don't know what to do. I give up. And of course we look down, and as you know, all of the dudes are sitting on the little plastic stools with their key copy machines. We had been looking for a key copy store, never actually looking at was right in front of us. So we had started where we needed to end up, and it was one of those great moments in Vietnam where you're like, this would have been so easy if I had just had the information, and now I feel really silly, but I find that sometimes, that sent me on my first wild goose chase through Hanoi to find something. Within your neighborhood, like Hanoi still feels like little villages. Lots of little villages that have been smooshed together into a mega city. I honestly wasn't really that attracted to Hanoi when I first came here. It's a hard city. I think that the thing that attracted me was the opportunities that were here. And the fact that even though nothing ever seemed to work the way that you thought it was going to work, it all ended up being this sort of wonderful adventure and maybe working out better than you had anticipated. So like so many of my experiences that kept me the sort of 6-month thing, it was because, I would do something and, working for the Vietnam News initially, wasn't what I thought because I kind of thought it was journalism, and then I realized that you're really writing propaganda. Then another opportunity would come, and one of my friends, Don Berger, needed help opening a restaurant, and he let me help him do that. And I got to run a luxury lifestyle magazine. All these strange things just kept coming my way, and so I would say the opportunity, and I think that's still true of Vietnam.
What's like a typical day for you?
That is my favorite thing about Vietnam, is there is no typical day for me. But I would say I work in the mornings remotely from home. I go to the gym, I come into the office, and then I usually go home and hang out with Justin and Quang Ang and Pan, or I go out with my friends. Like last night was my first night back since being away for a while, and 3 of my best friends. I think what's really interesting about the way that my life has changed in Vietnam is that while the majority of my really close friends are American or British or expats of some variety, my favorite people now are Vietnamese, but none of them are my age. I have very few Vietnamese friends my age. All of my favorite people now are basically younger than you or older than you.
What are your long-term plans here in the city?
I want to continue to be a part of my students' lives, even well into their career futures, because hopefully they're going to do things like come back and help with the air pollution and the traffic so I can spend more time here. But yeah, I mean, I don't see changing what I'm doing. I just hope that what I do gets to change for the better, and a lot of the problems that particularly our public school applicants coming out of AMS who are applying to colleges, I present on this issue a lot. I'm hoping I'll continue to affect change on that level. I'd love to be in education policy, but obviously that's, as a non-Vietnamese citizen, it's unlikely that will happen. Perhaps if there's some U.S. government initiative that happens helping with Vietnamese education, I love it. Vietnamese students, Rich is always saying they're the best in the world. I mean, it's a part of me. I'll never not have a foot in Vietnam. I can't not come back all the time.
Remember what I said about crucial communities? Well, back when our subjects, Justin and Caitlin, first came to Vietnam, they had to resort to time and connections and stepping out of their comfort zones to make a living and a life happen for themselves in this town. However, with the advent of social media, expats now have a much better platform to connect with fellow expats and learn tips on how to survive this crazy city. Even when halfway across the world in the United States, Facebook is facing a myriad of scandals concerning the ways that the platform manages their users' data and its privacy practices. The company is still thriving in a lot of Asian countries. In fact, being the biggest region for the platform, with over 828 million users accounting for 39% of its 2.1 billion users. Facebook's massive user base and presence within these countries have created some unintended consequences though. Last year, Facebook was briefly banned in Sri Lanka after the country's leaders accused the platform of fueling violence between the majority Sinhalese Buddhist population and minority Muslims and Christians. Additionally, United Nations human rights investigators Yang Hee Lee accused the social media company of spreading hate speech in Myanmar against the Rohingya Muslim minority, more than 700,000 of whom fled from the eastern province of Rakhine last year. The ubiquity of this platform can obviously be seen to have negative effects on whole communities and societies if used by the wrong hands for the purpose of radicalization and striking fear into the minds of the unknowing public. For the most part, however, Facebook is still the main way people connect in these countries. The same case goes for Vietnam, and especially for the expats community. Facebook groups are available to expats in the major urban hubs of Vietnam, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City namely, and have proven themselves to be huge centers for connection. Just a simple search into Facebook with the term Hanoi expats and it can give you numerous Facebook groups where expats can share tips on hangout spots and living in the city. They can sell and trade their personal items or even find jobs within the city. There are even more specific groups created by expats for both expats and locals to enjoy. One of these examples is LGBTQ Hanoi, where an amazing and thriving LGBTQ plus community resides within a city and a country that has typically been less receptive and more discriminatory against them. Events such as queer coffee talk and even the endless drag-related underground shows are protected and advertised freely here within this little online community. These are all important things to know if you are trying to settle into a new city, especially one with such a drastically different culture. Our last story comes from Angel. Angel is a mutual friend of mine, and because she was a little bit afraid of sharing her personal space, I met up with her in a local coffee shop. She's a newcomer to the city of Hanoi, but her story is still super fascinating. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Angel. I've been here for a month already with my husband. Actually, we just came here for, I'm just staying at home because I'm a housewife for now. I'm planning to work as well. Yeah, we came here because my husband was assigned to work here. So yeah. And maybe we're planning to stay 2 years.
So you're only here just following your husband?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
My husband he always transfer from one country to another. So.
Before coming to Vietnam, where were you guys?
In Philippines, and then my husband is Korean. I'm from Philippines, and then he assigned in Philippines, so already we met there, and then we got married, and then go back to Korea, and then my husband also went to Indonesia. So we always transfer.
What was it like being here for the first time? Since it's pretty new for you still, I bet like...
Everything is quite similar to Philippines. Not so traffic. Philippines is so traffic. But
is it worse or better in the Philippines?
Philippines is more traffic.
Oh, really?
Here, there's so many bikes. I'm so scared, like crossing the streets, and then they really don't stop even at the stoplight. They go. But I just think they're so skillful when it comes to driving.
They do,
They didn't crash.
They're really good at driving. Like they see you, they don't stop. They just find a way around you.
So my husband said, just go, don't stop.
That's true. Yeah, you gotta have the confidence to keep one step
I'm
after
so
the other.
scared.
What do you find really interesting about the city now that you're here for the very first time?
Maybe the food. The food, yeah. We're a food lover. We also travel a lot in Asia already. In Asia, so give me Vietnamese food. I want to try some more because we just here for 1 month. It's hard for us. For the first time, we find a house to stay, something like that. So we really don't explore much. Yeah, it's hard for now. Like our things in the house still coming here. It's in the ship. So it's like our things now is very minimal, and so it's hard to cook.
So do you think that like moving around so often kind of changes your perspective a little on like how to like kind of live life or like how to adjust to different cultures or something like that?
I'm planning to work here as well, but my visa, and we are planning to have a baby also, so it's quite difficult to adjust for now. My husband really wants to have a baby, so my husband just told me that just focus on the baby, to making baby.
Throughout this movie, I have shown you stories about people who have transformed their lives by risking everything and coming to a strange new country. However, Angel's stories presents the reality for most expats in this city. Vietnam's economic and industrial growth is enormous as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Let's take a look at a satellite image of the city of Hanoi from 2004 to 2018. Skyscrapers, roads, and other infrastructural projects are being propped up every day in the city, and the city leans heavily on international investments and talents. Angel did not want to tell me the specifics of her husband's project, but did reveal that he is working with the Latte Corporation in Vietnam. Keep in mind that the Latte Corporation already has major presence in Vietnam, including the Latte Tower in Hanoi, which is one of the tallest skyscrapers in Hanoi and in the whole country. I ask all of the subjects one question: do you ever feel like a local here? And the answer that I always get with that is a no. But that's not a negative answer at all, in my opinion. With the immense economic growth and attractiveness of this city to the international community, different cultures are seeping in and changing its nature and its energy. Of course, they'll never become locals in the real sense of the word. Justin and Caitlin travels regularly between Vietnam and countries in the region, as well as the United States. And Angel visits her family in the Philippines a few times every year. But they strive to experience everything and relish every opportunities that they are offered, living and enjoying themselves in this pandemonium that we all like to call Hanoi, Vietnam. They're locals, but at the same time, they're not. Perhaps faux locals is a good word for them.